Along with the many great financial professionals I've had on the show, I've also had the pleasure to sit down with some fantastic inspirational leaders. On this week's episode, you're going to hear clips from these motivational speakers. We've got How to Raise Your Game with Alan Stein Jr., The Hero Effect with Kevin Brown, and Learning How Greatness Grows in the Shadows with Justin Forsett. Alex Weber discusses how to be the unstoppable you, and Ben Newman highlights how to achieve continual peak performance in your life. I hope you enjoy. Thank you for being a Small Steps, Big Wins listener.
Alan Stein Jr., How to Raise Your Game.
I heard something the other day that plays right into effort and attitude is someone said that, and it's actually, they tied it to Kobe Bryant, interestingly enough. And they said one of the deals he made with himself when he said, I want to be the elite, was that no more negotiating with myself. And it's basically very similar to what you just said in the sense that, and so that was about 3 weeks ago, I heard it. And since then, certain mornings I get up and I go to the gym every day at 4:30 and I'm like, oh God, do I want to get up today and go? And I'm like, no more negotiating. And I always go, but I've stopped wasting that mental energy because I know it's so important to me and I have to bring that energy and attitude to that. So I love how you say that, you know?
No, well, I love the thread you're pulling on right now, because really, as human beings, we can negotiate and we can rationalize just about anything, even abhorrent behavior, and it would be easy for you to rationalize and negotiate, hey, I've worked out for the last 6 days. It's raining. It's cold out. It's fine if I just take today off. So we have to have a list of non-negotiables in our life, in our relationships, in the way we approach our work, in our personal self-care regimen. And those non-negotiables have to be in alignment with our core values. And it's been my own experience that when our behavior and our beliefs are congruent, and when we live a life that is in harmony with our core values, we use our core values for our decision-making, and that becomes non-negotiable. That's when we're happiest, when we're most fulfilled. That's when we perform at our best. That's when we're most productive. So getting crystal clear on our core values, making sure that they are non-negotiable, and then constantly focusing on our effort and our attitude. If we can just do that, the vast majority of the time we're on this planet, we're going to live very good lives.
Yeah. And I love how you ended that, right? It's not about being a great athlete or a great business owner. It's about having a great life. And I think that's so critical about, we try to always teach people about balance and having this life of everything. And you hit on so many fronts of that as you said that. So here, the next one is, how does someone achieve success? And is there a secret formula?
I believe the very first step is defining your own success. And I think that is pivotal, because if we fall into the trap of letting others define success for us, then that means we're kind of on somebody else's agenda, and we're pursuing things that might not even be in alignment with our core values and our non-negotiables. So I think first and foremost, each and every one of us has to define success. And it can be in measurable ways. You can define success through your work, through maybe your marriage or relationships. But to me, success has a lot more to do with the person I'm becoming, as opposed to the things that I'm doing or the things that I have. I try not to concern myself with some of these extrinsic, materialistic type monikers that much of society would consider successful. And instead, for me, it's about the person I'm becoming. Am I constantly improving and growing and evolving? Am I living out and modeling my core values to the best of my ability as consistently as possible? Doesn't mean perfection, but am I growing and am I moving in the right direction? Do I have a clear vision of the man I want to be 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now? And am I making decisions and exhibiting behaviors that are in alignment with that? And for me, that's my personal definition of success. But I found that if I can stay true to that definition, working relentlessly to become the person that I'm capable of, if I'm doing that, then all of the other measures or traditional measures of success just start to fall in place. My relationships thrive, my business thrives, like my health and fitness thrives. So to me, it's just a matter of what you want to consider successful. And I say that, it's not for me to judge what anyone else considers success. That literally is something that everyone needs to decide on their own and individualize for themselves.
I love that. And I think when I said the secret formula, I think the secret formula is what you said, is having your own definition of what a success is for you. And I think today, with social media, unfortunately, people jump around and they try to look at other people when it's really, you have to look inward and decide what that is for you and your family and the people around you. So I really appreciate what you said. And I think that's an amazing tip for people to hone in on that and then have the 5, 10, 15, but then make sure you're doing the daily things that build up to those things.
Absolutely. Because it's the decisions we make in the present that will ultimately determine who and where we'll be in the future.
Kevin Brown, the hero effect.
At Barnum, our vision is to impact as many lives as possible. Obviously, that's what you're doing, but you coined it a different way, calling it the hero effect. And what you're teaching is the hero effect. In fact, you wrote a book. I mean, you started in 2002, but you wrote the book, The Hero Effect, in 2017. So why the hero effect? How'd you get that? And give me some color on that.
Yeah, well, it's funny you say that because 2002 to 2017, that's that's the overnight success that everybody sees.
Yes,
right. They want to know, wow, this thing's been a rocket ship. I mean, literally since 2017, we've done 900 events.
Wow.
But what
Kevin,
they don't see is that build from 2002 when I still was in corporate America. I was one of 2 non-family execs in a family business that we grew to a couple of $1 billion. And I was really content. I'm a 9th grade dropout. I never made it to college. My special needs son, my son with autism, was the first in my family to go to college. And so that journey from 2002 to 2017 was pretty remarkable. And all of the doors opened up and things started to happen. The hero effect really revealed itself to me. I actually shared it inside of our organization back in 2008. It was called the hero equation back then. And today there's maybe 10% of that original content still in there because the message keeps revealing itself to me. And with every change in the environment, the business landscape, the marketplace, the pandemic, all of the headwinds continues to refine that message and reveal different things about it. And so the context of it continues to change. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about our work is they go, oh, I don't need a team full of heroes. I don't need people that are here to save the day. And the hero effect isn't about saving the day. It's about serving today. It's about showing up and doing everyday things with big intentions. And so a lot of people shy away from this idea of being a hero. In fact, they miscategorize it all the time. They define heroes as ordinary people who do extraordinary things. And the truth is, heroes are extraordinary people who choose not to be ordinary. I don't think anybody was put here to do ordinary things. And
I agree.
So this journey of revelation and understanding and revealing more of this message has been quite extraordinary for me.
Well, it's interesting. So let's talk about the journey a little bit. So I'm sure that you weren't just, you kid about being an overnight success, 15 years, but take us through some of the ups and downs. Was there ever a time there that you're like, hey, the family business is, a good option and maybe I'll bail? Or was it, how did you handle that as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, it was scary. It was scary. Again, being a 9th grade dropout, I was in a career situation because this family had adopted me into their own. And it really secured our future. And Lisa gave up her career to take care of our son and to be an amazing hero and advocate for him. And so sole breadwinner, no education, no credentials, and had a great opportunity. But because of that opportunity, I always say now leads to next. If we're a good steward of right now, if we're a good steward of this little circle called now, that's when the next opportunity comes. And so many people focus on the next opportunity that they miss now. And so I committed to now. I committed to that moment and to that family and to that opportunity. And everything was what has been an outcropping from there. When I left that organization at the end of 2016 and retired, it was bittersweet. I didn't want to go. I was the heir apparent to the marketing side of that organization. And in fact, a year or so after I left, they came back to me and said, "Hey, will you come back as our CMO? We're working a deal with Blackstone and we want you to be part of it." And I seriously considered it. It was very tempting. But again, smartest person I know, my wife, Lisa, put it into perspective. She said, "Honey, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. You're on the path that you didn't choose, but it chose you." And so I turned down the opportunity. And of course, the family, they're still my biggest fans. The franchisees are my biggest fans. And, it's been a really special thing. But I had to get down in the trenches and figure out, where do I find some self-confidence to stand on stage? Who am I to stand on stage and talk to some of the finest financial advisors on the planet, some of the finest leaders on the planet, some of the best human beings on the planet? Who am I to do that? And I had to really work through that. And I had to dig deep and find a level of confidence that said, wait a minute, you went from being homeless, and I have been homeless more than once. Wow. You went from being homeless to, a high school dropout to no college training, all of the things that you've gone through. Let's just recount what your resume looks like. It just is a little unconventional. And I had a lot of people around me, and I had a lot of people supporting me. And gratefully, I have some stage skills and some presence that I was able to begin to polish and hone and to grow. And, again, here we are 900 events later, and I still don't believe it's true.
Yeah. And that's what, my dad used to say, whenever you hit a peak, the only thing left is a valley. Right. So you're just stacking, as I use all the time, you're just stacking one good day on top of the next. And then you wake up 15 years later and you have a real business and you have real issues along the way. Can you make the comment, the now one again, that saying that you just said? Say that one more time for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now always leads to next.
Justin Forsett. Greatness grows best in the shadows.
You're a motivational speaker or a platform speaker, or however you want to perform it. Mm-hmm. I think your message is so amazing and so real. What made you decide to go into speaking like that? Were you one of those guys in the locker room, or is that something that you just decided to do later on in life?
Absolutely not. I was not one of the guys that was vocal in the locker room, rah-rahing guys up before a game. I was more of a guy that led by his actions. I was a leader. I was a captain on a lot of the teams I was on, but it was all about the work that I put in and the leadership by example, if you will, servant leadership that I had on the playing field and off the field. And speaking just came about where I was going through so much. I was facing so many obstacles I was able to overcome. And I was like, man, this can't be just for me. How can I help someone else get over these humps? Because, when you're in that like really thick of those painful chapters within your life, it can be so frustrating, so disappointing, even lead you to, paralysis when you're just so numb and you don't feel like you can push forward. And I remember being in those moments, I was just like, man, if I could have, someone come and pour into me. And I had those guys that would come in, encourage me and lift me up during those times. And it's like, I want to be able to do that for people. I want to be able to help people reach their potential and push through those hard things from my experiences. So after my year in Jacksonville, where I had a pretty significant hard season there, I was like, man, if I don't do anything else, I'm going to have impact. I wasn't playing on the field. So I put on my first speaking event down there for the community and had a couple guys come out, myself, a couple of players, and we were able to share stories about us overcoming things and obstacles. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do to kind of pay it forward along with being an entrepreneur.
I love that. And I love the paying it forward. Stay on though, when you were having a tough year at any time, was there someone that said something to you or a speech that you heard or someone that resonated that helped lift you up? Was there any kind of moments that you can think of that really did that for you?
Yeah. There are many. I will go back to that time. My 6th year in the NFL, I was with Jacksonville Jaguars. I was not playing. It was pretty apparent that they didn't want me there, the organization. And I was literally, just another guy, just another body out there to practice. And I was getting frustrated because none of the things I've been able to do, my life mattered when it came to the competitive edge that I would bring to the field. No matter how hard I ran, no matter how mentally tough I was on the field, no matter how much I helped my guys and my teammates around me, it just didn't move the needle for me in that position, in that time in life. And I remember my team chaplain at the time with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Every day he would come up, man, how you doing? Man, just like, because I talked about this in the presentation. It's like when we're going through obstacles and challenging moments, we'll create these narratives in our head that may not even be true. We'll create these false narratives on why we aren't having the success that we desire. And in order way to combat that, a way to combat that is having people in our corner, and I talk about in our huddle, to help, push that negativity out of our minds with the positive thoughts, encouragement. And I had that, whether it was him, whether it was my wife, whether it was other teammates that were just constantly like, man, keep going, keep doing the good work. It's going to pay off. Don't worry about what they said. All right, just keep believing, keep fighting. And I would have that consistently day in and day out. Because I can recall driving to work mad, just like frustrated. Like, I know they don't want me here. Like, why am I going to work? Why don't they just trade me? And I realized that during that moment, I was there for more than just football. Like, I really, really fully understood that, like, some seasons in life is not just about me, right? In most seasons of life. But this particular season in life, it was just like, man, how can I step outside of myself and make my teammates better and pour into other people? It was a season for me to just give and serve. And that led me into my big breakout year the next year. But that's when I fell in love with speaking.
That's amazing. And I love the pay it forward. And I love the mental, there's a lot of talking to yourself that goes on when you're an entrepreneur and you're an athlete, and you did that. And I think that's really important. I commend you on that and the attitude that you had, because it is hard driving to work like that. And I'm sure many of the listeners here are doing that, and you can change that story if you want to. So, and you did, Justin. So really good stuff. Can you just, I won't do it justice, but I've heard you tell the huddle concept. Mm-hmm. Can you just give me, you mentioned it a minute ago, but I think it's important that you share that, because many people are running through life and they probably do have a huddle, but they don't even realize it's a huddle that's in their life. And maybe they'll start to use it differently by hearing you give that little story.
For sure. I'm a firm believer that we need to do life with a group of people or community of people that can lift us up, that can encourage us, that can push us forward, hold us accountable, allow us to be real and transparent and vulnerable. When I got in a huddle with Peyton Manning would give me warning, he would give me encouragement, and he would give me instruction. He would give me warning, he would give me encouragement, and he would give me instruction. That not only applies to a football field, but our day-to-day life, whether it's business or like. We need people to pour into us, to encourage us, to lift us up and strengthen us. And these are our spotters in our life. These are the people that help us lift the weight when it seems overwhelming, when it seems daunting, when it seems bleak. These are the people that come in to help support us and lift us up and prop us up. Not yes men, but people that tell us when to push and when to pivot.
Alex Weber, being the unstoppable you. That was where everything changed, because now basically to keep this dream job, I had to start doing well at this impossible sport.
But was it part of the skit for you to fail, or were you truly failing?
You know what?
Was it like wrestling, or was it you?
When they were like, you should fail at this, I'm like, great, next question, because whether I'm trying or not, it was so hard that I was just failing on it. But then the next season, especially those first few episodes that we were filming, so you film over the course of a season. So I had like 4 months to really get good at this. However, every week that we filmed, I was still failing at these obstacles, trying my best. And I was really scared that they were going to just say, this isn't working. Let's fire you. Let's just see if we can find another Ninja Warrior athlete who can talk to the camera, and we'll put that person in there.
So your commitment was not only doing the show work, but when you left the show, you were training us so many hours a week to do this, right?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I mean, you know that because you get it. It is I was basically like, all right, the real honest moment, and this is what I shared too with our meeting was first you got to decide, are you in or are you out?
Yeah.
Because I knew that if I were in for this, it was going to take a lot. Yeah. So I first had to decide, like, do I even really want to do this? Or do I want to just throw my hat back in the ring and maybe I'll get hired for hosting some silly game show, you know?
Sure.
But I'm like, I won't be able to live with myself if I quit on this.
Yeah, I love it.
You know, and how can I, you know? And so I was just like, you know what? I'm in. And I think that's so important for us to decide, are we in? Because then all the stuff that happens after that, the late nights, the hard moments, the arguments, we're in. You already decided you're in, you know?
No doubt.
And so it was a lot of time and long hours. And man, I just remember, you know, going to these Ninja Warrior gyms and we trained till about 11 p.m. It was just the culture. Everyone trained kind of late at night after work. So we trained from like 8:30 to 11. I would drive home. I'd try to take like an Epsom salt bath because I'm so sore or roll out. And I'm like going to bed at 1. My hands were all ripped up. And, you know, the biggest thing I learned is you got to stick with it until it starts to click.
Yeah.
Because it will start to click.
No doubt.
But, you know, and you know this with your group, if you're learning a new system or you're trying to pitch a new client, you got to just stick with it and weather the storm and learn, because then it starts to come together.
I love that, because there's so many people in life that get so close to something and then give up right before they get that click. And in our business, I see it with advisors and the leadership team. Like I see that click happen and you know it's coming. And when it happens, your business goes like this. So, you know, one quick question just to stay on this, but so you're a college athlete, former college athlete. And right. But were you still, I'm just more curious, were you still training like an athlete when this got thrown on you? Or were you just, you know, staying in shape so you could be on screen? Or were you like competing you were just, so you were training, but not really grinding like you did prior to?
Oh no, I was doing beach muscles. I was doing, you know, biceps and chest at the gym, and
got it.
You know, I would do some things here and there. I played in a lacrosse league and all this, but I'll share this, and this is a little side avenue. There was a period where I really adopted the belief that I was done being an athlete, and it's so important what we think we are, because I started to behave like that. I started to eat like that. I started to drink like that. I started to not exercise like that. And I remember, I'll just be real, I saw a photo of myself and I'm like, that's not me. Yeah. Like, that's not, did you like do some effects? Is that a side angle? What's going on here? And it was a wake up call of, hold on, this doesn't really feel like who I am. Because people told me this, now I'm going to stop being something that I love. So it's just so big to just prove to ourselves.
100%. And I always tell, I teach that being a corporate athlete is much harder than being an athlete, because there's no off season, there's no breaks, there's no rest. Right. And part of that is, really keeping yourself in that shape that you have to, so you can compete and run at the highest level. Because if you don't, the old school business mentality is you're fat, you're out of shape, and that doesn't hold well. So I'm glad that you got that at a really young age. So good for you, because some people don't get that.
Ben Newman, achieving continual peak performance.
People thought I was really crazy. I mean, I literally had our managing partner. He's like, wait a second, like, let me show you the numbers. Like, do you know what you're leaving? He's like, you have renewals, like well into the six figures of, hundreds of hundreds of six figures of renewal. Like, you're just going to leave this? And so I guess I had to, be absolutely crazy to be certain this is what I wanted to do. But Paul, I was blessed to impact so many people. And while I was doing that, I was still building this business. So I was kind of growing both.
Got it.
And it got to the point, the blessing of my coach, she still coaches me to this day. Her name is Laura Pierce, almost 2 decades of coaching me.
Wow.
And she said, Ben, stop trying to control something that's out of your control. She's like, maybe one day you'll just go speak, write, and coach, but stop trying to control it. And I would wake up every day. I would surrender to the big plan that was in store for me. And I'd walk through the doors that were opening. And, here we are. I ended up leaving being an advisor in 2012 was when essentially I retired.
So for 6 years, you were really grinding on
doing both
sides on the thing. And I think that's important because some people don't understand that maybe you don't rip the Band-Aid off, but you figure it out, but you're working, hours and hours and hours, and your drive and discipline's there to help you get to where you were today.
Well, I mean, how often do you see this, right? I mean, your organization, you employ over 600 people now. Somebody comes brand new into the business. Like these days, people, they don't want to be disciplined to take the small steps every day for years. They want to say, well, Paul, why isn't my day one the same as his day 10,000? Or why isn't my day one the same as her 30 years in the business and one of the best that you've ever worked with? Why can't I be her? It's like, well, because she's worked one day at a time for 30 years.
Yes.
And people want the fast fix. And whether it's sports or in business, you and I both know whether it's growing muscle, whether it's growing a business, whether it's eating right, it's the small disciplines every day that lead to winning.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a question on that, Ben, because you're coaching, besides athletes, you're coaching financial advisors, executives, and I'm sure you're hitting people in multiple generations. What you just talked about, are you seeing that in all generations, or do you think it's more of the younger kids that are saying they want the fast thing, or how is it coaching different generations? Because some of the coaches you work with are way older than the athletes are, Yeah,
I mean, it's a broad scope. I mean, you take college football players that I work with. Yeah, the freshmen show up and they realize like you probably need to put on 25 pounds before you get hit by the guys that are about to hit you. This would be a little bit of a process. This isn't high school ball anymore. And so, you see that at the high school level, but I do see it, more so, and you can relate to this. It's an advisor who maybe he's a career changer, to where I get a phone call from one of those leaders from an organization that says, hey, here's a gentleman that was making $400,000 a year. He's now transitioning and he thinks he's just automatically going to make $400,000 a year. And he wants to bypass rather than realizing, okay, there's a process, there's a proven system. You were brought in and recruited to be part of somebody's team, which is going to help you, but you're still going to have to be disciplined. You're just not going to walk into a $400,000 salary.
Yeah. And so I'm sure with everyone you deal with, some of them have the mental fortitude to do it. But a lot of people, as you're coaching, do you find there's a lot of head trash that you have to work through with them to get them their mindset right? And is it very different doing that with an athlete versus someone in the corporate world?
I think there's self-talk for all of us. There's self-talk for me. There's self-talk for you. I mean, we got to be honest. I mean, you're always going to have self-talk, but the question becomes, how long do you allow the conversation to last?
Okay.
And people recognizing that your self-talk is still you, right? That's why it's called self-talk. So you get to shut it down. You get to choose where you put your power. And so whether it's an athlete or a business professional, we all have self-talk, but the key is being clear and understanding what are your standards, or what are those daily disciplines that cause you to win. So I always say standard over feelings. Don't allow your feelings to dictate how you show up. You have to live to the standards every day. So what does that look like? An advisor comes into your office and she says, Paul, I've been in the business for 10 years. I've been dreaming of having an AUM check that was $250,000 for a quarterly. I just had the $250,000 check. And all of a sudden she goes on a 1-month vacation. Now, I'm all about vacation, but that's living to your feelings. You're getting seduced by success. The $250,000 quarterly GDC check was actually a byproduct of what you knew you needed to do. So why are you surprised? So let's not go vacation for a month and start taking steps backwards and no longer returning people's phone calls so that your check's smaller the next quarter. Show up if you're supposed to show up the next day and do what you're supposed to do that day, and keep stacking those days, which I know you and I both believe in.
Yeah, I love it.
And far too often people get seduced by success. Their feelings start to dictate their behavior. And then they call you a year from now and go, Paul, I don't understand this. I dreamt of getting to 250,000. How are my quarterlies now 175,000? And they literally started losing accounts in droves because they just stopped working because they thought they'd made it.
Self-inflicted pain, right?
That's right.
Creating for themselves. And it's interesting, as you're saying the story, I've had with the best people I coach here, I've had the opposite where they came in during their interview process and they said, when I get a 250 check for the quarter, you're not going to see me, dude. Like, I'm off, I'm going on vacation. And now they're obsessed with getting to 500 and $1 million on that quarter. And those are the winners that are doing the things that it takes. Thank you for listening to Small Steps, Big Wins. Please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All opinions expressed by the program participants are solely their current opinions and do not reflect the opinions their respective parent companies or affiliates or the companies with which the program participants are affiliated. Investments or strategies mentioned in this program may not be suitable for you, and you should make your own independent decision regarding them. This material does not take into account your particular investment objectives, financial situation, or needs, and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. You should strongly consider seeking advice from your own investment advisor. Securities and investment advisory services offered through qualified registered representatives of MML Investor Services, LLC. Member SIPC, 6 Corporate Drive, Shelton, Connecticut, 06484, telephone number 203-513-6000.